This is Jim Fetzer in Madison, Wisconsin, with David Scorpio in the exotic land of Ecuador and Michael Ivey in Asheville, North Carolina, with the latest from the front. The U.S. GDP grew at 33.1% in the third quarter, the fastest expansion ever. If the Democrats thought they were going to deprive Trump of the economy as an argument for his reelection, that's been blown apart. Absolutely fascinating. Here's a chart of what's going on. The economy is still expanding, albeit at a lower pace. Economists expect it to grow in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, the jobless claims likewise have dropped to 751,000, better than expected. The initial claim number is the lowest since March. Airlines have started laying off thousands of workers due to the lack of demand for flight. Claims had hit a record 6.87 million back in March. Meanwhile, however, the fall is a decrease of 709,000 from the previous week's level, very significant. Meanwhile, black support is up for Trump at 31%. We've seen even higher records. If Rasmussen were wrong, say by a factor of 2, if it were only half of what the pollster found, 15 to 16%, Trump would still double his 2016 share, which would mean he won more black support than any modern Republican presidential contender. And we know it's been phenomenal, where Rasmussen has found it creep up to as high as 46% last week. It's not the only poll showing support among minorities, where the Hispanic vote has been going up as well. I believe these are very powerful indicators of a Trump landslide. Scorpio, your thoughts?
Well, I think we're going to be in for a wild ride either way. And if Trump does win, I think they've already got things in place to delegitimize the election and that he's not a legitimate president. We're going to hear an endless chorus of that. And, you know, the mainstream media is also downplaying this idea that the economy is getting better. I heard several experts on the PBS NewsHour downplaying the whole thing. And essentially they're just saying that the good economy was handed over to Trump by Obama, which is laughable, but that's how they're playing it, Jim.
Yeah, the line by the press is just monstrous. Michael, your thoughts?
I am somewhat skeptical about these flowery assessments of the economy, just because, I don't know, is that 31% coming back from what we've lost over the last 6 months? It just seems like it's being stated that way, but I'm not sure that the powers that be don't want Trump for another 4 years so that they can place deeper wedges between the American people. Now, the situation about blacks, that's just a wonderful thing. It shows me that there is the balance of the black population that's no longer automatic slaves of the Democratic plantation. And it also tells me that the great majority of blacks are not buying into the media white supremacist smear that they've used against Trump for all these years now, 5 years now.
That was initiated in Charlottesville, which was an effort to transform Trump from putting America first into a white nationalist, a white supremacist, and then a neo-Nazi, which is a theme they've been pushing ever since. Terry McAuliffe, a buddy of Hillary's, who was governor at the time, it appears, been instrumental in perpetrating the fraud, which is immense. I have a whole book about it.
But those numbers really spell doom for the Democrats. If they're going to draw even 25% of the black vote, that's total doom. Oh, and one little personal note I wanted to add. You know, last week Kamala Harris came to Asheville.
Yes.
And there were only 12 people that showed up. Did you see that video?
Yes.
Well, that was me. That I went down there with I got 10 of my friends. So 11 of us that was me and my friends. And so we went there to heckle her, but you know, we felt so bad for her. We had
what
to stand
was the point when nobody was turning out? Michael, that's a sensation. Go ahead.
And there was only one other person there that wasn't just me and my friends.
That's just a sensational footnote, Michael. I love it. I mean, how could they think that these people have a prayer?
The only person who showed up other than me and my friends was a woman with fluorescent green hair and a nose ring.
Meanwhile, lurid new Hunter Biden file suggests an abusive 2-year fling with Bo's widow. This is his older brother. This is pretty appalling all by itself. Hunter, of course, has had a very mixed life. The confessional about their tumultuous relationship can be heart-renderingly tragic at times, such as when Hunter reveals she told me that, in fact, she and Bo would laugh about my stupid antics behind my back, that my brother didn't really think as highly of me as I thought he did. And once, exact words, well, you were always disappointing to him. But the empathy that Hunter's pathos elicits quickly dissipates as he reveals his own predatory conduct toward many vulnerable victims, as well as a callous lack of remorse. She has told others, I'm a bad influence, that I endanger their health, that I've been sexually inappropriate, that I've physically abused her, that I've emotionally abused her, I'm abusive to everyone around me, all of which appears to be massively true. Now get this, huge breaking exclusive. Hunter Biden has a Pornhub account where he uploaded his personal porn, including with family members. And there appears to be images there of those who I believe are the Obama children, the two of them together having sex with Hunter. Stunning. Meanwhile, the FBI instructed Facebook to censor anything negative about Biden, knowing what would be coming out, because they'd had the laptop all ready for 10 months. Breaking from Rudy. DOJ officials confirm Hunter Biden and his business associates are currently under active criminal investigation, which has been ongoing since 2019 and may include his father, Joe. Where are the media? Meanwhile, American Thinker. This is fascinating. Trump administration forces China to sell the port of Long Beach. The Trump administration Department of Homeland Security has forced China's state-owned Costco to sell the port of Long Beach over security concerns. China's Costco Holdings, which bought 75% owner, was forced to sell to Macquarie Infrastructure for $1.78 billion. The Obama administration had no problem with them taking control of the port with a 40-year lease in 2012. The sweetheart deal was part of the Middle Harbor redevelopment program to fund a $1.5 billion expansion, but it was completely outrageous because the national security dimensions of this were simply overwhelming. China operates 6 of the world's 10 busiest container ports already. The Chinese government has funded the construction and operation of 43 ports in 35 countries under its One Belt, One Road initiative launched 5 years ago. This is a completely fascinating report. Scorpio, I think Trump has done another masterful work here on behalf of the American people. Your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. And the one ominous thing about this, though, is that according to many reports I've read, the ports in Los Angeles, they're absolutely full of Chinese cargo ships, all the containers are full. China is back in full production while the West is preparing to lock down and completely shut their economies down. It almost seems like there's a plan in place to try to destroy the Western economies on purpose and hand it all over to China. France is about to lock down, or it already did lock down. Same with Italy and other European countries. There's rumors that Canada is about to do the same thing. So this is a very odd development, but it is good that at least the port is back in the hands of America. And, about Hunter Biden, the whole thing is just absolutely tragic. And it's just sort of what happens when you have a family devoid of any kind of morality. And to me, it's just a tip of the iceberg about the behavior of the Washington swamp creatures. Almost all of them behave this way. And this is how the elite roll. This is how they live their lives, and how they're controlled through blackmail and dossiers of just awful, awful behavior.
And you can understand why they're hysterical over the prospect of Trump being reelected to continue draining this swamp. Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, in terms of the election, this Hunter Biden thing is a gift that keeps on giving. It doesn't seem like we've even reached the bottom of the barrel yet, but things keep coming out every day. I thought Scorpio's observation or speculation about taking down the Western economies and handing it over to China, that's an interesting thing. The controllers can't be happy with that decision that Trump just made to take away that port in California from them. And that would comport with their overall plan of integrating everything. If they're selling ports all over the world to their next hegemon in the economic world, which is obviously China.
Michael, I think that China is already the model for the globalists. So they don't have to destroy China. China is already part of the big picture. They want to turn the rest of the world into a China facsimile. And that's why they're going after the Western states.
Exactly.
The US is the problem for them. And that's why they're so desperately trying to reelect Trump. I mean, to defeat Trump. And as you say, the Biden laptop, I think, threw a monkey wrench into the big plan. Scorpio, did you have a thought to add?
No, I agree with your assessment. The Chinese system is to be exported worldwide. It's the most efficient system the globalists have decided upon. It's a hybrid of communism, socialism, capitalism, and technocracy.
Yeah, and get a little cubicle and an allocation of energy, and if we use it up, did Hillary just reveal who's holding the strings of a would-be Biden administration? I think we're going to have to move quickly. The new interview may shed light on the identity of a key behind-the-scenes puppet master in the Democrat presidential nominees Biden's aspiring administration. Salacious accounts of his public life, as well as public concerns about his impropriety with married women and young girls and boys, have hinted since well before the emergence of the laptop that some within his own party might have dirt on the former vice president. In any case, there's no doubt Biden would be beholden to many, while typical special interest coalitions like activist group labor unions, Wall Street may have a minor role to play. Several major stakeholders have emerged. Globalist billionaire mega donors, including Michael Bloomberg, Tom Steyer, and George Soros. Silicon Valley technocrats who control the flow of information, Google, Facebook, Twitter. Foreign actors like China and Iran. I don't believe Iran, by the way, has anything to do with this whatsoever. Radical pro-socialist thought leaders like Bernie Sanders, the Squad Antifa, deep state government agencies, including the FBI and the CIA. According to Clinton, though, there may be another figure, one who's kept a relatively low profile, calling all the shots, Barack Obama. I've told you the Obama campaign I mean, I told the Biden campaign and the Biden transition, they're going to have to move really fast. The failed 2016 candidate said during an interview. Clinton's confession appeared to be something of a Freudian slip, but it would not be the first time Democrats have divulged their true feelings via a gaffe. In May, Biden awkwardly told influential African-American podcaster Charlemagne the God, "You've got more questions? Well, I tell you what, if you have a problem, figure out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black." Despite his advanced age and surprise decision to forego large-scale campaign events, allegedly because of coronavirus, Hillary said his handlers and legislative allies have been planning out an extensive schedule for dramatic post-election changes. In anticipation of a full-fledged leftist takeover of two, possibly all three branches of the government by packing the Supreme Court, Democrats have readied a raft of new bills. Now, thankfully, Nancy Pelosi, bless her heart in every way, has teed up a lot of great legislation. Hillary has emphasized Biden should refuse to concede under any circumstances, which of course would include that he loses with a massive landslide for Trump. Democrats expect reliance on mail-in voting will help them, but I don't think it's going to work. Scorpio, your thoughts? You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, operator error. Yeah, they're going to have to delegitimize this election, and that's the plan going forward. They're saying that Iran is, working with white supremacists. I don't even know how that computes, but there's, that's what they're saying. And apparently, there's a network of white supremacists working with Iran to mess the election up. So this is going to get absurd. We're going to see a theater of the absurd coming out after this election, and I think it's going to be a nonstop attempt to delegitimize the results for sure.
Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, that is totally absurd. They must be talking about that huge expat colony of white supremacists in Iran. That's a joke. The thing that Hillary said about there being someone behind the scenes, is that just, did she say Obama, or did the fact that she referred?
The slip meant it. She appears to have meant Barack Obama, but I believe Hillary is just as much behind the scene manipulating.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see Obama as being the CEO behind all this leftist stuff back there. I think they're getting their orders from above, of people that we don't hear about every day, and that these people like Soros and Steyer and the billionaires and the heads of the tech companies are basically what in Rome would be called imperial
Yes. Meanwhile, we'll be right back. The virtual conference will take place on the 5th and 6th of December. It's going to have 24 speakers, simply excellent people on a wide range of subjects, including JFK, three of the very best, on 9/11, again, another masterful trio about targeted individuals, the lawsuits to oppose it about the godfathers of sex abuse, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, about faking of hate crimes and the like. This is one you don't want to miss. Give yourself a break, post the election, let yourself wind down, and let your mind absorb the extent to which we, the American people, have been played, frequently by our own government, where Barack Obama paved the way by nullifying the Smith-Mutt Act of 1948 by means of the Smith-Mutt Modernization Act of 2012, just in time to bring us the fake attack on children at Sandy Hook to promote gun control. Meanwhile, the world star hip-hop features black voter canvassing for Trump, asserting he ain't a racist and he is a damn good president. He said before Trump was president, did everybody love him? In their music videos, rap videos, all the magazines, he got awards from black communities and the NAACP. Everybody loved him. But when he became the president, they said he's a racist. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Because when he came into politics, he said, drain the swamp. He started taking out all the politicians, and not just politicians, the evil, corrupt ones. Did you notice since he's been president, the economy's been better than it's ever been? Unemployment at an all-time low, more jobs created than ever before. He also remarked about Biden. Did you know that Biden, in 47 years of politics, has only been a racist, said racist things about you and me personally as black people, and made a bill to incarcerate black people? The man just said, you ain't black unless you vote for him. He also said he didn't want his children going to school in a racial jungle, didn't want integration. He was for segregation. He also said that poor kids can be just as bright, just as intelligent as white kids, meaning that black, brown, red, yellow, or poor. The dude did nothing but hurt black people. Marvelous stuff. Marvelous stuff. As for Biden, nobody can tell you none of the great things he did, but they can pull up everything he's done that's to the black common. Even Hillary calling us super predators. Michael Moore is worried we're going to have a repeat of 2016. Biden's poll lead is not an accurate count. Trump has tightened virtually every one of the swing states to the point where, what are they saying this morning? Biden's 5 points ahead in Wisconsin, maybe 3 in Florida, 2 in Arizona. Lists don't believe these polls. Second, the vote Trump is always being undercounted. Pollsters, when they actually count a real Trump voter, the Trump voter is very suspicious of the deep state calling and asking who they're voting for. So it's not an accurate count. I think the safe thing to do, this is not scientific, I'm just saying from my experience, whatever they're saying the Biden lead is, cut it in half right now in your head. Cut it in half. Ever since Trump's rousing performance at the RNC, Moore has been warning Democrats not to become complacent. Someone needs to pull the fire alarm now. Where are the stories about Trump gaining on Biden? Sorry, I have to provide a reality check again, but when CNN polled registered voters in August in just the swing states, Biden and Trump win a virtual tie. Minnesota 47-47, in Michigan, where Biden had a big lead, Trump has closed the gap to 4. Are you ready for a Trump victory? Are you mentally prepared to be outsmarted by Trump again? You find comfort in your certainty there's no way Trump can win? I'm fascinated how Michael Moore is again sounding the alarm, just as he warned that Hillary was going to lose because she neglected the Rust Belt states. He had it right then. He's got it right now. Scorpio, your thoughts?
Well, what's so incredible about Biden's campaign, and it's probably the worst run campaign in modern history, is he hasn't made one campaign promise that would actually help the American people. He's promised to make a national mask mandate, indoors and outdoors, promised to raise taxes, and now this newest thing, he's promised to reunite 545 children who were taken apart from their parents, illegal aliens. That's his newest promise. That tugs on the heartstrings, but how does that help the average American's life? It doesn't. So this is a terrible campaign. And as far as the rappers and the black people, the mainstream media has lost control of the narrative. They're losing control of the black narrative, and they just don't know what to do. They've had control over the narrative for so long, they can't imagine not having control of the narrative, yet it's slipping away from them as we speak.
Wonderful, wonderful points, David. Wonderful points. Michael, your thoughts?
This story about the African-American entertainment website called World Star Hip Hop, and the fact that they're presenting guys like this who are Trump supporters is more evidence that basically the Democrats have lost their psychological hold on the black population. And that's a wonderful thing. Regarding Michael Moore, I can't find anything in that I disagree with. And That's another good thing. He and many of us are seeing through these polls and how Trump's being underreported, and how Michael Moore says that you can cut Biden's lead in half, but I think it's much worse than that.
It is much worse. Trump has a minimum 5 to 7 more points than the polls are showing. I thought Schofield made a very penetrating point about the campaign. It's all based on emotion. Even when they do stories about Biden, it's about the pity, the suffering when his wife and a child were killed in an automobile accident. We're supposed to elect this guy because we feel sorry for him. That's pathetic. But if you allow emotions to control, you're not exercising logic or reason, all of which favors Donald Trump. So
That's true.
I think there are just signs galore here of where things stand.
That's
Meanwhile,
true, and they're trying to use the same tack with the whole Hunter Biden story. They're saying, "Oh, my poor family! Please don't attack my poor family." It's all an emotional appeal rather than anything trying to counter the mountain of evidence.
It is 100%. You're absolutely right. And now look how the Daily Mail once again reports stories that the U.S. media is not willing. Has COVID killed off the flu? Experts pose the intriguing question: as influenza cases died by 98% across the planet. And that's, of course, because they're calling them all COVID. I mean, this is completely outrageous. There's supposed to be consumption of a flu vaccine, the highest it's ever been in the over 65 and young children. There's just one problem. Flu, it seems, has all but vanished. The disappointing act began as COVID-19 rolled in toward the end of our flu season in March. And just how swiftly rates have plummeted can be observed in surveillance data collected by the World Health Organization. Patients aren't routinely tested for flu, even if suspected, but a number of sentinel GP surgeries and hospitals do carry out diagnostic screening. The data gives us the most accurate picture, a startling insight into what has become a creeping trend around the world: no more flu. In the Southern Hemisphere, where the flu season happens during our summer, WHO suggests it never took off at all. In Australia, only 14 flu cases were recorded in April compared with 367 in 2019 for the same month, a 96% drop. In June, actually, usually the peak season, there were none. Australia has not reported a positive case to the WHO since. Chile, similarly, completely outrageous. Flu has simply disappeared. Isn't that miraculous? Dr. Fossman said, common colds probably shore up our defenses against other viruses if we completely shut down the transmission with these lockdown measures and then open it again. We will see even bigger peaks of coronavirus. I'm strongly in favor of mitigation measures, but it's big experiment. I'll be watching closely. So, in essence, the CDC has canceled the flu for the 2021 season. Due to the ongoing COVID pandemic, this system will suspend data collection for the 2021 influenza season. I mean, how blatant could they make it? The numbers can't stack up, so they're counting every influenza death, which has been in the past many times more than COVID, as a COVID-19 death. Scorpio, how blatant, how dishonest, how corrupt.
Yes, well, as the mainstream media loses control of the narrative, their tactics are going to become more outrageous, which will only accelerate their loss of control. So they're really in a quagmire here. And if you notice too, if you look at the state websites, the state health websites across the country, they have quit reporting deaths from pneumonia and the flu. So both of those diseases have miraculously disappeared. And we have to ask ourselves, are we really going to take a wrecking ball to the Western economies and Western culture because of the sniffles? We really need to be asking ourselves this, because that is exactly what is happening.
You can see
the last thing I would say is that they're planning on this going on for at least another year because they're already suspending the tallies for cold and flu for 2021. So this is a long-term event they're going to try to play out.
Yeah, it's completely outrageous. Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. And I say kudos to the Daily Mail for having printed that story and carried it in the first place. I took note, what was it, 2 weeks ago when when Canada reported that their flu deaths in all of this year so far, almost 10 months worth, were a total of 6. when there's normally close to 40,000 per year.
Yep.
Or attributed to flu anyway. And I would have loved to have seen the worldwide figures when I saw that story. So there they are. They're saying that they're recording a 98% drop in flu cases, which just makes it radically obvious what kind of brainwashing they're doing to us.
Yeah, this is so blatant. It's so insulting. And our mainstream media is obviously sold out completely. They are not protecting the nation. They're participating. They are complicit in its destruction.
And Jim, if I could just add one thing, isn't it convenient that the symptoms for COVID are exactly the same as the flu?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Scorpio. This was a very diabolical plan. Meanwhile, how can you tell if someone is an indoctrinated idiot in 2020? They'll be wearing a germ-infested face diaper while believing they're heroes who are saving people's lives. How well that sums it up. Meanwhile, the left-wing reporter who broke the Snowden NSA scandal has resigned over Biden's censorship from an organization that he himself had founded. Glenn Greenwald said the editors of The Intercept, which a Pulitzer Prize winner helped to begin in 2013 in the aftermath of the Snowden story, refused to publish an article unless I removed all sections critical of Joe Biden, the candidate vehemently supported by all the New York-based Intercept editors involved in this effort at suppression. How outrageous. Greenwald, long regarded as a left-wing reporter due to his critical stance on authoritarian governments and surveillance, has increasingly drifted toward a more conservative libertarian stance since the Obama and Trump administrations. He's been particularly critical of the suppression effort in the scandal surrounding Hunter Biden's laptop, calling Representative Adam Schiff the most pathological liar in all of American politics after the House Intel chair falsely suggested the laptop was a Russian disinformation plot. Meanwhile, Laura Poitras sickened by layoffs at The Intercept. The Citizen4 director and award-winning filmmaker who helped start The Intercept's parent company, First Look Media, Laura Poitras, lashed out Wednesday after layoffs were announced internally, according to emails obtained by the Daily Beast. I am sickened by your decision to eliminate the research team, which has been the beating heart of the newsroom since First Look Media was founded and has overseen the protection of the Snowden archive. I'm also sickened by your joint decision to shut down the Snowden archive, which I was informed of only yesterday, made without consulting me or the board of directors. She also called the email announcing layoffs from the CEO, Michael Bloom, in an attempt to paper over the firings, claiming it was not appropriate for such devastating news. Absolutely outrageous. It looks like, even a venue that was founded to get out the truth is itself internally corrupting itself. Outrageous. Scorpio.
Well, Glenn Greenwald is a very impressive guy in a lot of ways. He's sort of a dying breed, known as a journalist, a real journalist who actually tries to cover the facts and doesn't just spout propaganda and his own personal belief system. And he was on Tucker Carlson's show the other last night, and he went into depth about how the left has completely lost its way They used to be anti-war and deeply suspicious of the intelligence agencies, and now all they do is simply parrot what they're told to say by those same agencies. It's really sad. And we're seeing this culture of corruption continue to metastasize everywhere, and it needs to be exposed and it needs to stop. It's sad that his own news organization has turned into another arm of the deep state propaganda machine.
You're 100% right, Michael. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very happy to see Glenn Greenwald stepping up like this and actually resigning from his post. I have been a little less than happy about some of the positions that he's taken in the past, because I thought that they were too not exactly directly to the point. He was sort of beating around the bush about some central truths, but it seems like he's stepping up to this one. Someone sent me this story yesterday, and I didn't know exactly what the issue was. That I knew that it was censorship, but I didn't know what. So this tells us that it was all about the laptop scandal and criticism of Joe Biden in general. And I really love this quote from Glenwald about Adam Schiff, the most pathological liar in all of American politics.
And
Love that.
He's got it exactly right, Michael. Yes, exactly right. Meanwhile, Islamo-fascist terrorism, 3 dead, several injured after church attack in Nice, France. French police neutralized and arrested a man Thursday after a knife attack inside a church in the city of Nice, leaving at least 3 dead and several injured. It's been a busy day for French security services. Beyond the church attack, a gunman in Avignon, and a stabbing at the French consulate, there have been 2 other foiled attacks in Paris and Lyon. Potential copycat terror attack foiled in Paris suburbs after Nice attack. Update: alleged attacker is a recent migrant from Tunisia. France's Le Figaro now reports the alleged attacker in custody for killing 3 in Nice's Notre Dame church. Thursday morning is a 21-year-old migrant from Tunisia, said to have arrived in France only this month after crossing the Mediterranean. The fact is potentially of political importance. Lampedusa, where he arrived as an Italian island, had been a major waypoint for migrants coming to Europe from North Africa. Landings on Lampedusa have recently surged, and Italian populist heavyweight Matteo Salvini has called for the Italian interior minister to step down if it's indeed proven the illegal came through the island. Meanwhile, I would remind you, Nice has been the source of false flag orchestrated attacks a few years ago involving an 18-wheeler in an area where 18-wheelers were not allowed. It's supposed to have hit 84 persons, but yet there's not a speck of blood on the truck below. You can see what happened from a truck hitting a single deer. This suggests the truck didn't hit anyone. And in fact, it turns out they were using mannequins in the street. This is one of the most blatant false flags of them all. If you go to JimTheConspiracyGuy.com, for example, and check out How to Spot a False Flag Part 1, you'll find this is the second story that I illustrate because it's so blatant with its use of mannequins, which we've also found in other situations, such as at the Parkland shooting and of the like. Scorpio, your thoughts?
Jim, you know, the level of deception that we live under in this world is simply astounding. That false flag you just talked about, you know, it's just a tip of the iceberg again. Amazing work you did on that, by the way. And look, here we have this pure fantasy, this story that, a grade school teacher or a high school teacher showed a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad, the same old fantasy story, and we're supposed to react to it like children. And then, of course, a crazed Muslim goes into a church of all places and stabs people with a knife. And of course, here's the important part. Macron doubled the number of troops on the streets in France to protect us, right? But of course, this is at the same time that they're about to go into a massive lockdown and completely closed the economy down in France. You should see the footage of people leaving Paris from the other night. It is astounding. Miles and miles of cars trying to get out of Paris because of the coming lockdown. Absolutely surreal. And I believe it's foreboding because it looks like they're preparing for some kind of martial law in France in the near future.
Scorpio, I think you got it right. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar exodus from California. Michael, your thoughts?
Those are great comments, Scorpio. As soon as I saw this series of Muslim attacks in France mounting up, there was that first beheading that didn't look real to me at all. And then the ones after it in the last 48 hours, my skeptical light went off. And it seems like every time something like this happens, just as Scorpio was talking about, there's an ulterior motive. And Scorpio might be right on the money as to what it is. Scorpio, if you've got a link having to do with that story of people bailing out of Paris, I'd like to see it. Thanks.
I'll send it to both of you later this afternoon.
One more question. Statement in the slide number 54. It's talking about this island off the coast of Italy called Lampedusa.
Yes.
And it says that landings of third world immigrants have recently surged. And that just shows you that there's a lot going on behind the scenes for the agenda to water down and replace the European identity and people going on behind the scenes of this COVID-19. And in that regard, I want to show you, let's see this book?
Yes. Conquest of the Handbook for Resisting the Great Replacement.
Yes, this is a new book that's being published by the Knights Templar organization. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm told it's quite stunning. And I would recommend it to people who are concerned about that.
Yeah, using immigration as a political weapon in order to destroy or grossly alter a culture. I think that's been going on now in Europe for all too long. And
not just political. It, according to the United Nations definition, it's actually genocidal.
Yeah.
Very nice point. That book ought to be a bestseller.
And could I just add one thing to what Michael was saying? It also proves what a fraud this whole COVID thing is, because shouldn't we be stopping? I mean, we can't just let people wandering into the country willy-nilly if, they might be carrying this deadly virus, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes no sense at all.
Yeah, the whole thing is a crock. Complete, total, unadulterated bullshit. Meanwhile, we want to hear from you. Fan mail, pro or con. Send it to liveneedtoknow@gmail.com. liveneedtoknow@gmail.com. We have more than usual today. A new comment on Need to Know, the report for 29 October. Regarding the missing docs, it was a USB key that was taken out, now strangely found. Could it be it was recopied to be altered? Well, they didn't send the original, they only sent a copy. So if they had changed anything, it would be easily discernible. I believe they wanted to copy the docs to see how much that Tucker Carlson and Fox News had in their possession. Here's another from the 29th of October report regarding Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scandal. What remains to be seen is if the FBI Delaware Police Department will act on this. I fear nothing will happen before the election. Once the votes are in, the indictments will begin, Durham, etc. If Joe Biden wins, we'll see 3 years of impeachment proceedings, which could lead to KH presidency, Kamala Harris. If Donald Trump wins, years of increased contention and conflict, not to mention ongoing CV narrative. That's inconsistent, I think, with what you, Michael, and you, Scorpio, have been reporting. Meanwhile, Another comment, this from EAH, no to Fetzer. No one cares who some effing rapper endorses or about the opinions of some third-rate celebrity like Chelsea Handler, whoever she is. Advice from the boomer, limit the boomer cringe content. Well, that just seems to me to be a colossal blunder. The Black community is very strongly affected by popular opinion from rappers. Here's another story. Lil Wayne meets with President Trump, praises his work within the Black community. Just had a great meeting with Trump, Wayne said, whose real name is Dwayne Michael Carter Jr. Besides what he's done so far with criminal reform, the Platinum Plan is going to give the community real ownership. He listened what we had to say today and assured he will and can get it done. So here's a tweet that went out about it. Trump's Platinum Plan seeks to increase access to capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion. Here are its 4 pillars. Opportunity, by achieving historic employment levels for Black Americans, as well as increasing access to capital for new businesses. Trump has been committed to ensuring all Black Americans can achieve the American dream. Security, by signing into law the First Step Act. He's brought common sense criminal justice reform to the American people for the first time in decades, ensuring our streets and communities are safe for families and business owners. Prosperity, as a first president to provide long-term funding to historically Black colleges and universities. This administration continues to seek immediate and generational advancement for Black Americans. Fairness, as demonstrated through his actions to initiate investment into opportunity zones, as well as address health disparities, wage gaps, and necessary education reform. Trump works every day to advance a fair and just America for the Black community. Meanwhile, other prominent celebrities, including Brett Favre, speaking out to endorse President Trump. My vote is for what makes this country great: freedom of speech and religion, Second Amendment, hardworking tax-paying citizen, police and military. He wrote on Twitter, in this election, we have freedom of choice, which all should respect. For me and these principles, my vote is for the real Donald Trump. I agree with that 100%. Now, meanwhile, from Ireland, I've received this report, very sobering. This world has turned into a sci-fi nightmare when you think about it. The people who laughed at conspiracy theorists are people going along with this dystopian bullshit, all running around like spacemen. Think about it. We were called nutters, and those people who called us are believing that a virus that has a 99.8% recovery rate constitutes or justifies a complete takeover of our lives, the destruction of our liberties and freedom, the end of employment, the need for a vaccine, the destruction of education, and the end of factual science and math. How crazy are those people who are in agreement with this unscientific bullshit? Now, I suggest if you want to compare the reasons for voting for Trump versus Biden, check it out. Here first, Trump.
their force at peaceful protesters.
The vast majority of the protests have been peaceful.
And they're going and just pulling people off the street to make it seem like there are problems going on when all that's happening are peaceful protests.
And our peaceful protesters' ability to get out at night?
Most of these protests have been peaceful.
I applaud these protesters.
The majority of these protesters are peaceful. They have been peaceful for weeks.
It has continued, for the most part, peaceful.
It was peaceful. We had a number of peaceful protests.
I gotta say, they lead to the same conclusion of who you ought to support if you care about America and the future of this nation. Your final thoughts, Scorpio.
Well, I thought that second commercial was particularly brilliant. Yeah, mostly peaceful protests, right? I love the background of fires and looting. You know, I really appreciate the comments that people make. It's always good to hear from different people's perspectives. And the comment from Ireland was particularly interesting. Yes, the people that mocked conspiracy theorists are the ones that are going along with this. I've seen it firsthand on the streets. Some people will defend this and their belief systems until the very end. And I just want to thank Michael Ivey for coming on. Michael, you said some really insightful things that made me think, and I really appreciate your perspective and getting to know you better in the future.
Hey, thanks, man.
Michael, your final thoughts.
Okay. Earlier, Scorpio mentioned that China is the globalist model for how they want to remake the world, and that seems definitely to be the case on several fronts. One of which is the technocracy, the techno tyranny that they're leaking out here and there. And based on some insightful statements that I'm hearing recently from people like Whitney Webb, I don't think we've seen or know the extent to which they want to apply that techno tyranny yet, but it's not good. There's a couple of good things. There's also some serious holes in the dike, so to speak, of this tyranny coming down on us, and one of which that's developed in the last month or so is the most popular health website on the web is Dr. Mercola's site. And he has just about totally woken up and started talking about it lately. He just did an hour and 20-minute interview with Whitney Webb on the vaccine rollout and the deep state military intel system that's behind it. It's not a medical thing at all. And I recommend that everybody watch that interview. It's killer. And the other thing is this German American lawyer named Rainer Fulmisch. I saw a new interview with him done by a guy from South Africa, and he says he's within a couple of weeks of announcing what it will probably be the biggest, not probably, definitely be the biggest tort case, that being for damages for the people of the world in world history. And evidently he's kind of the spokesperson for a group of lawyers across the world that he says are even more powerful than he is. So that's a big hole in the dike.
Great comments. This is Jim Fetzer in Madison, thanking David Scorpio from Ecuador and Michael Ivey from Asheville, North Carolina. It's such a privilege for me to share these programs with excellent commentators of their high character and intelligence. We're doing our very best to bring you what you need to know. The fate of the nation truly hangs in the balance on Tuesday. If you haven't voted already, be sure you vote now, because your future, the fate of this nation, even of planet Earth, hangs in the balance. Thanks for being here. We'll be back on Monday with the latest from the front.